On behalf of the Raza Foundation and the India International Center, we welcome you to this 95th session of Art Matters. We have been at it for a long time, and by the end of this year or early next year, we'll be hitting the century. It is very seldom that we get people to talk about music. And I keep on hunting for people who might. And in that quest, I discover Mr. L. Gopalakrishnan. I don't seem to have met him before, although I might have seen him or something. But I seem to come across his comments, and his comments are always accompanied by a recording. So I thought maybe we should spend an evening with him, listening to him talking about music. As for Schopenhauer, which is the intriguing part of the title, I think, many people have asked me, and I said, I do not know. It is Mr. Gopalakrishnan who is going to tell you what is it all about, how reading Schopenhauer leads to Kesarbai or whoever. There are two small anecdotes that I know about Schopenhauer. One of them is Darashikoh translated the Upanishads into Persian, and a French traveler came to India and picked up a copy of that translation and took it to Paris, where it was translated first into French and second into Latin. And Schopenhauer read the Latin translation. So that was Schopenhauer's access to Upanishad through the first ever translation of Upanishads into a foreign language by Darashikoh. And the second is, in this hall, in IIC, there was a seminar in which I think he was an Italian art critic or art historian who had an intriguing paper called Beethoven and India. Now, I never thought, I don't know much about Western classical music, but I did not know that there was any connection between Beethoven and India. Now, it turned out in that paper that Beethoven, after his great creative, furious period, was passing through some kind of a depression. And during that time, Indological studies were taking place in a big way in Germany. So Schopenhauer, Goethe, who wrote a poem about Shakuntala, and Max Muller, they were all discovering and projecting Sanskrit texts. And it seems that Beethoven happened to read these texts because he kept a diary, which is perhaps in German is called Tagebuch or something, daily diary, in which he has, for instance, reproduced the entire translation of the Nasidi Sukt in German. He also reproduces the poem by Goethe on Shakuntala. He also writes that I would like to have created an ensemble of religious voices from India. He also writes some comments about Schopenhauer's analysis of Upanishads and whatever. So that is Schopenhauer and Beethoven. And the paper argued that before this encounter with India, Beethoven was a very severe Christian musician. But this encounter opened him up, made him less severely Christian, more opened up or whatever, and that his later period, therefore, is marked by a creativity which is open-ended, more vulnerable, less severe. Now that is Schopenhauer. Now Mr. Gopalakrishnan is a broadcaster with long years of association with the Central Archives of All India Radio, formerly director content of Sahapedia and recipient of the Kerala Sahitya Sabha Award for Prose in 2012, and has authored several books in English and Malayalam. So, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, there you are, Schopenhauer and whatever else.
Good evening, everybody. I would love to begin with thanking the Raza Foundation and the India International Center for giving me this esteemed platform this evening. It was Mr. Ashok Vajpayee who sent me this invitation. I am neither a musician nor a musicologist. If anyone wants to call me in any nomenclature related to music, it can be at best as a rasika. Therefore, I was a little perplexed even as I agreed to the invitation to give this talk. But a verse came my rescue. Few lines that I read around 2 decades back, an English translation of a poem by Ashok Vajpayee, titled Nowhere But There. And the lines are, neither here nor there, neither in hope nor in despair, we will remain just there where we do not want to. I have suggested a topic for the day on a German philosopher's thoughts about music, journeying through 10 Indian classical vocalists to provide a musical ambience to the unique ideas of Arthur Schopenhauer. I didn't know about these Schopenhauer's contacts with Darashuko's translations. Thank you for that input. But this Beethoven's connects with India, the best connect I could recollect was a girl in UK called Madeleine Slade, was a great fan of Beethoven, and she was experiencing Christ while listening to Beethoven. And when she read the biography of Beethoven by Romain Rolland, she went to Switzerland to meet Romain Rolland and discuss with how she experienced Christ in Beethoven. And then Romain Rolland told her, if you want to experience Christ, don't listen to Beethoven, go and stay with the living Christ on earth, Gandhi. And it was through Beethoven only she came to India. And the tragic part of the end is when Gandhi was assassinated, she remained here for 9 months or 10 months here, and she in fact started the initial papers which led to Chipko movement and all about the Himalayas. But she left India and didn't return to her birthplace in England. She went to a remote village near Vienna where Beethoven died. Therefore, that full circle was there when it comes to Beethoven. 15 years back, I started sending daily emails to a set of friends. The mails contain a link to the music that I heard that day morning or the last day evening. And that link along with a short note, and I still continue this practice. I got hundreds of new friends because of this passionate engagement, and still I continue to get new friends in music. As Vajpayee rightly said, an invitation to this stage too came probably because of that fraternity. I am thankful to my 10 years of tenure with the Central Archives of the All India Radio for an enviable contact with the magnetic tapes of 24,000 hours of Indian music. Someone said that our beautiful earth could be enveloped twice with the length of those magnetic tapes. What a magnetic bond that would be. Raza Schopenhauer, German philosopher who was active in philosophy in the 19th century, a contemporary of Hegel, 8 years younger to Hegel, gave paramount emphasis to music in his scheme of reasoning and considered music a very abstract fine art as superior or equivalent to the will, in capital letters W-I-L-L, will, as he called the inner essence of everything. Just before getting into his world, allow me to take you to an Indian context. Ustad Aman Ali Khan, 1888-1953, of the Bendi Bazaar Gharana, Bombay-based Gharana. He learned Carnatic music from Bidaram Krishnappa, musician and composer in the court of King Chamaraja Vodayar in Mysore. And it was Ustad Aman Ali Khan who introduced the raga Hamsathwani into the North Indian classical music. He had composed the famous song Lagi Lagan Pati Sakhi Sa in raga Hamsathwani, which was used by Ritu Khatak in his 1960 film Meghe Daga Tara, dealing with the aftermath of the partition of Bengal during the partition of a subcontinent with the same music rules. And the music composer of the film, Jodhindra Moitra, brought a man from Madras to sing the song, Arcot Kannabiran, who became famous as Pandit A. Kannan. Let me begin with two tracks here. One is Lagi Lagan Pati Sahinsa, sung by Pandit A. Kannan, and followed by a rendition of a famous Muthuswami Dikshitar composition in Carnatic music in Hamsathwani, sung by legendary G.N. Balasubramaniam. Lagi Lagan Pati Sakhi was a truthful copy, a thanksgiving gift to the Vadapi Ganapati Bhajeham by Dikshitar. When Ritu Khatak made a film based on the wounds of a partition, this song had unified Bengal in a pan-Indian scale. And believe me, Khatak's brother Sudhish Khatak was the cinematographer of the 1942 Telugu film Patni. Now we are going to this G.N. Balasubramanian's Vadapi Ganapadim Bhajim. If you listen carefully, you can understand, what I was telling. It is a truthful copy of Lagi Lagani is a truthful copy of Vadapi Ganapadim Bhajim. If you think about it, the anecdotal reference that I gave prior to playing of these two tracks has no musical relevance. It has nothing to do with the body of music at all. Still, those references take the two songs to a different realm, though these references had no significance to Muthuswami Dikshitar or Ustad Aman Ali Khan, or don't carry any meaning even to a practicing musician in our times. From this note, I am thinking of getting into the day's topic, reading Arthur Schopenhauer. The World as Will and Representation is the magnum opus of Arthur Schopenhauer. The first edition was published in 1890. The second edition, an expanded one, was in 1844, and a further expanded one was published in 1859, just 1 year before his passing away at the age of 72. The volume 1 had 4 parts. Book 1 was epistemology, book 2 was ontology, book 3 was aesthetics, and the book 4 was of ethics. And in this presentation, I mostly depend on the book 3, which is on aesthetics, and a few other writings of Schopenhauer and studies on his theories on music. I would prefer to add a few sentences here before getting into book 3. On the whole, we can say that music as such has been poorly treated by philosophy. There are philosophers in this auditorium. They can differ if I am wrong. Few philosophers were, of course, musicians. I do agree. And few musicians were philosophers too. I would treat the Carnatic music composer Muthuswami Dikshitar as one among them. Let me try to explain the word will in Schopenhauer's vocabulary. Schopenhauer identifies the thing in itself, the inner essence of everything, as will. A blind, unconscious, aimless striving, devoid of knowledge, outside of space and time, and free of all multiplicity. This is will. Schopenhauer regards the world as a whole having two sides. One world is will and the other world is representation. The world as will is the world as it is in itself, which is a unity. And the world as representation is the world of appearances, of our ideas, or of objects, which is of course a diversity. Here Schopenhauer says, let me quote, music acts directly upon the will. The feelings and emotions of the hearer, and unlike other arts, he explains the other arts as architecture, painting, sculpture, and poetry. He gives a little more marks to poetry though. Music does not express ideas of objectification of the will, but directly the will itself. How a representational expression differs from music, which Schopenhauer argued that directly the will itself. When I asked the question to a philosopher friend yesterday morning, he quoted a story from the ancient Athenian times. According to Pliny the Elder, it all began in the 5th century BC with a contest between two Athenian painters to determine which was the greatest painter of the time. The first painter, Parrhasius, painted grapes so perfectly that a flock of birds flew through the window to eat them. The second painter, Zeuxis, invited Parrhasius to his studio where his painting was draped by a curtain. When Parrhasius was invited to remove the curtain so he could judge the quality of the painting, he was astounded to find it was not a curtain but a painting of a curtain. Grapes or curtain are representations. And when it comes to music, it is beyond that. That was Schopenhauer's position. I'm trying to make it in simple terms as I understand it. I may be wrong too. Schopenhauer argued that music is as supreme as the will, the essence of everything. Other arts belong to the secondary world, which is the world of representation I already mentioned. Whenever I listen to Kesarbai in the Hindustani or the North Indian system, or Shemmangudi Srinivasa Iyer in the Carnatic music or the South Indian system of music, I always enter into an expanse where I don't exist anymore. The music exists, the music only exists. I won't claim that it is that the first world will of Schopenhauer, but I relish my loss of self in that world. Let me play Raga Kambavati by Kesarbai, followed by Raga Kharakaripriya by Shemmangudi Srinivasa Iyer. poet is Shamangudi Srinivasayar Karayarapriya. Most of the recordings that I use is from is a vintage recordings. Therefore, please bear with the quality, especially this Karayarapriya is from early 1950s. I can't take pain. I think no one in this hall enjoys suffering or pain. But how do we relate to the aesthetic representation of pain or suffering? How come we love to listen again and again to the wounded voice of Begum Akhtar? How do we explain that? It is not because Begum is another person and her pain is not mine. I experience the pain, but I am loving it. According to Schopenhauer, during the aesthetic experience, we gain momentary release from the pain that accompanies our striving. Let me quote from his work on the metaphysics of music. Quote, "Music never causes us actual sorrow, but ever in its most melancholy strains is still pleasing. And we gladly hear in its language the secret history of our will and all its emotions and strivings with their manifold protractions, hindrances and griefs, even in the saddest melodies. When on the other hand, it is one will itself is aroused and tormented, we have not then to do with tones and their musical relation, but are rather now ourselves the trembling string that is stretched and twanged." Though Schopenhauer mentioned a trembling string, I use only the trembling vocal cord of Begum Sahiba to enact the philosopher's words. While listening to "Ye Mohabbat Tere Anjam Pe Rona Aya," after reading Schopenhauer, I have a feeling that the will itself is the trembling string that is stretched and twanged. If Bigam Akhtar's wounded voice is not an unbearable melancholy to me, it's according to Schopenhauer because the music transfers the movements of the will over to the province of the mere idea. Music moves in the province of the mere idea. Now I am going to another aspect of his theory of music. He said while talking about the union of music with he said while talking about the union of music with dance, for instance in an opera, I quote Schopenhauer, music is an independent art and does not need words of a song or the action of an opera to give it meaning. In opera, music stands the libretto and the action in the relation of the reversal to the particular, of rule to the example. The music of an opera, as it is presented in the score, has a completely independent, separate, as it were, abstract existence of itself, to which the incidents and persons of the piece are foreign, and which follows its unchanging rules. In 1916, when Govind Bellal Deval wrote the Marathi play Sanshay Kalul, it had 30 songs. One song from that, as Schopenhauer says, stands the libretto. It becomes a completely independent, abstract existence of itself, to which the incidents and persons of the piece become foreign. This is Mriganayana Rasika Mohini by Pandit Vasantarao Deshpande. to conclude the session after that song, but it is a little more to say. As I mentioned earlier, Schopenhauer gives music the highest place of honor among the fine arts. Nambudiri, famous artist, one of the greatest illustrators that modern India ever produced, once told me in a personal talk that he considers music as the most abstract form of art, and being a painter and illustrator, he was striving to reach close to that level of abstraction that music achieves, but beyond the reach of a painter. The image that you see here is the drawing that Nambudiri did, caricature that Nambudiri did of M.D. Ramanathan, who was one of his favorite Carnatic musicians. What Schopenhauer said was, among the fine arts, apart from music, poetry, painting, and the plastic arts, merely represent the ideal, whereas music can express will directly. I quote, "In the language of music, which is understood with absolute directness, but which is yet untranslatable into that reason, the inner nature of all life and existence express itself." Let us listen to M.D. Ramanathan presenting Hindolam, which is Malcones of Hindustani. How do musicians read Schopenhauer? How do musicians approach philosophy? How does a practicing musician take this session at all? I do not know whether we have practicing musicians in this whole. How does a practicing musician take this session at all? Whether there is any need for a musician to know philosophers' take on music, I don't think it is required. Schopenhauer himself wrote in Essays and Aphorisms, the art of not reading is a very important one. It consists in not taking an interest in whatever may be engaging the attention of the general public at any particular time. I remember what filmmaker G. Aravindan mentioned in a personal talk on how some purists listen to music. He said, one should not listen to music as chartered accountants audit bank accounts, which raga, which time, which month, end of March. I still laugh whenever I remember those words. G. Aravindan, like Satyajit Ray, had a deep sense of inner music. Ray himself has said once that his understanding about the structure of a film goes with the form of a Western classical orchestra. Still, some musicians read philosophy, possibly like the way Einstein played his violin, or Picasso played his guitar and sang flamenco songs with friends. Schopenhauer had a fan among the musicians, and that was none other than Richard Wagner. In Wagner's autobiography, we find his account of his first impression of Schopenhauer. I quote Wagner. In the peaceful quietness of my house, at this time, I first came across a book which was destined to be of first importance to me. This was The World as Will and Representation by Arthur Schopenhauer. What fascinated me so enormously about Schopenhauer's work was not only its extraordinary fate. Wagner was referring to the sad fact that the book has been published 30 years before but had attracted no attention until that time when Wagner wrote these lines. But the clearness and manly precision, bear with him for using manly precision, some other part of time, though we have a problem with that. But the clearness and manly precision with which the most difficult metaphysical problems were treated from very beginning with its aesthetic side, I was perfectly content and was especially astonished at his noble conception of music. Senior Dagger brothers had a noble conception of music. But what about Gandhi? I remember a recording of an interview with the late Drupad Maestro Ustad Aminuddin Dagger, which is lying in the archives of the Calcutta station of All India Radio. A moment where two major musicians met a philosopher politician. Ustad Aminuddin and Moinuddin Daggers visited Gandhi. Gandhi gave them around 10 minutes to sing before him. If music is a time art, Gandhi too was a time artist. He valued every moment like the importance of every moment in a song. The Platonic Gandhi had better things to do than listening to music. Therefore, he granted a little time to daggers. In fact, daggers needed a minimum half an hour to establish even a raga. Naturally, daggers crossed the allotted time frame, but Gandhi silently sat and listened to the music fully. Once the music was over, Gandhi left the scene without saying anything to the musicians. Daggers were a little worried, but after a few minutes, Gandhi's secretary came with a note from Gandhi. The note had these words in Gandhi's hand: I am on my quiescent woe, Maunavrat, today, but let me say, I was experiencing the presence of God while listening to your singing. I'm playing a Malcons by the great senior Dagger brother. The world as will and representation, as Wagner said got very limited attention during the lifetime of the other philosopher Schopenhauer. However, Schopenhauer came to know about two admirers. Vajpayee mentioned one name in the introduction, Goethe, and a German romantic writer Jean Paul, these two admirers. Schopenhauer expressed his contentment in few sentences. I quote, "In my opinion, the praise of one man of genius fully makes good the neglect of a thoughtless multitude." I repeat it. In my opinion, the praise of genius fully makes good the neglect of the thoughtless multitude. After the partition of India, few Hindustani musicians remained in the Pakistani side as they belonged there. They didn't choose to go, they were at that part of the country, therefore they lived there. They remained in the Pakistani side, and very few migrated from the central India to Pakistan, like Ustad Buddu Khan and all. And we know the history of Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan's reverse migration from Pakistan to India. I am taking you to a music track from Schopenhauer's line, "The praise of one man of genius makes good the neglect of a thoughtless multitude." In the 1950s, Ustad Salamat Ali Khan and Ustad Nasakat Ali Khan, who were Pakistani citizens by then, visited Delhi for a music concert. The political relationship between both the countries were very strained then. But the Ustads found a distinguished guest at the front row in the audience. After the concert, they said, "We never get a prime minister or president to listen to music there." Prime Minister Pandit Nehru was present during the entire concert. I'm playing Sindhi Bhairavi by Ustad Salamat Ali Khan and Nasakat Ali Khan. There have been definite criticisms about Schopenhauer's placement of music along with the true essence, will, and many pointed out the contradictions in it. I don't want to go to that side today, as my plan was to create an Indian musical ambience to his thoughts, and critical notes might sound like an apaswara or apashruti. Schopenhauer considered that the underlying essence in man, this bit of reality, the thing in itself, is will. Will is more important and prior to intellect. Man is primarily an active and willing, a thinking being. The intellect is the slave of the will. Schopenhauer considered life as not worth living but he offers us a palliative in the shape of music. 2020 to 2024 period happened to be the birth centenary years of many Indian musicians, and all of them in their teens were amidst the nation's longing for freedom. 2024 is the birth centenary year of the great Carnatic musician Palakkad K.V. Narayana Swami, who till the end wore only khadi. Saukhyam, harmonious well-being of mind, is the core of any palliative care. And when we discuss about the palliative that Schopenhauer offered to a not worth living life, the music of K.V. Narayana Swami fine-tunes a Shruti in my ears. Synonym for his music is Saukhyam, repose. KVN track will be followed by Ustad Fayaz Khan, another palliative offer to our unending sufferings. Let me conclude by taking Schopenhauer's will to the bedside of Gandhi during his fast in Pune. Tagore was beside Gandhi, a company Schopenhauer would have relished. Tagore travelled to Pune to dissuade Gandhi from the fast unto death during the Pune Pact days. Once Schopenhauer categorized art into two. One is useful art and the other is the fine arts. I quote Schopenhauer, "Mother of useful art is necessity, and that of fine arts superfluity. As their father, the former have understanding and the latter genius." Two figures that come to my mind are Gandhi and Tagore. Gandhi as understanding and Tagore as genius. Gandhi belonged to the useful art Gharana, whereas Tagore to the fine arts Gharana. On 1932, September 20th, Gandhi broke his fast in Pune. Tagore was there. Let me quote Rabindranath Tagore's words. It is his diary. The fasting was broken. Mahadev Desai urged that the song Jibon Jakhon Sukhaye Je from the Gitanjali was one of the favorite songs of Mahatma, and Mahadev Desai requested me to sing it for Mahatma. I could not remember the tune. I had to manage with a provisional one. But he sang for Gandhi, and I conclude this session by Hemant Mukherjee singing that song. Thank you, and I thank the Raza Foundation and Indian
Is this your phone? No, mine. Okay. Well, friends, it was a very deep and moving experience for many of us, I'm sure. Normally after this, you should not speak too much. However, if there are any comments or questions that you feel very strongly to express now, we have some time, maybe for 2 or 3 comments. While you articulate your comment, let me tell you that among the musicians that you played, I have been, being old enough, in my 85th year, I can recall very distinctly having heard many of them live, including Salamat Ali, Nazafat Ali, who in 60s, when they used to come for Shankarlal Music Conference, 200-300 persons used to go to the airport to bring them. And there used to be a bit of a tug of war there, because in whose car they should travel. Vasantrao Deshpande, Begum Akhtar, M.D. Ramanathan, Daggers, senior Daggers. Senior Daggers at that time were working also in the Bharati Kala Kendra. And some of the earliest Kathak Nitya Natikas, the music was composed by the senior Daggers. And actually the word Dagar Bandhu became famous from them. They were the first Dagar Bandhus. Who else? Who else was there? Vasantrao Deshpande. Yes, of course. Vasantrao Deshpande. He's a very talkative man. And we had an evening at our house after his performance, and M.S. Hussain was also there. And Hussain was quiet. And Vasantrao Deshpande going on and on. And at some point, I think, Vasantrao spoke to Hussain in Marathi. And Hussain answered in Marathi, because Hussain knew Marathi. And Semanguri Srinivas Iyer. Semanguri Srinivas Iyer was the first recipient of the Kalidas Samman. We had the jury in which the problem came, if we are instituting a national award and if it goes only to a North Indian or a South Indian musician, it will not become nationals. And the award money in 1980 was 1 lakh. So I spoke, while the meeting was on, I spoke to my chief minister and said we should not split the award, we should give 1 lakh to both. And he agreed. So we had Mallikarjun Mansoor and Semanguri Srinivas Iyer receiving the award from Indira Gandhi. And there's an interesting episode there. You know, when the Prime Minister gives you time, it keeps on getting curtailed, because the Prime Minister is delayed or whatever. So first we were told that it will be 1.5 hours. So we said half an hour we'll finished the citation and all that, and half an hour to both of them. Then came the word, no, the Prime Minister is getting late, so it's now get down to 1 hour. So I went up to both the masters and said, 15 minute ही आइए. ठीक है. Then came a third messenger saying that the time has been reduced to half an hour, which as a deputy secretary, a minor functionary in government, I just said, I will speak to the Prime Minister. So we had put a huge photographic exhibition of both the artists. So I took the Prime Minister and I told her, you are in great hurry and you will not listen to them. इसे नहीं हो तो बड़ा खराब लगेगा. और उनका तो पक्का गाना है, उनके नहीं वो 15 मिनट गाएंगे. कहा ठीक. So she agreed. But by the time I brought the Prime Minister to the stage and the others joined in, the Governor and the Chief Minister, etc., the word has reached the green rooms that perhaps the Prime Minister will not stay for the small concerts. And Mallikarjun Mansur was sitting next to Indira Gandhi. So Mallikarjun Mansur told him कि क्या इंदिरा जी आपके पास तो हमारा गाना सुनने के लिए भी वक्त नहीं है. So she got rattled and I was called कि नहीं हमका नहीं पंडित जी टाइम है. Now there is an interesting episode. Kumar Gandhar was our vice chairman of the Sanskriti Salahakar Mandal. He was also sitting. When Indira ji stood up to address, she by mistake perhaps thought that he was Bhimsen Joshi. So in her, she said, Adarani Joshi ji. Now this is a huge lapse, and since he was our vice chairman, now how to amend it? So normally the Thanksgiving is to be a small formal affair, especially when prime ministers or presidents are there. I immediately thought, and what I started doing was Mani Pandit Mallikarjun Mansur, Mani Pandit Semangudi Srinivas Iyer, Mani Pandit Kumar Gandharv, and everybody's name. It took 2 minutes more, but she got the hint. Anyway, she sat in the audience. But Kumar Gandharv was a little annoyed, so he went away and sat a little distance. After the two small concerts were over, and Indira Gandhi was like Mahatma Gandhi, was a very fast walker. So she stood up and started and stopped halfway. By the time Kumar Gandharv had come a little but was still away, she went up to him and said, Namaskar Kumarji. And went. So there are these little things. Yeah, has somebody come up with a comment? Yeah, please. Wait for the mic. There. Yeah.
Thanks, Gopalakrishnan, for this very interesting and a very brave experiment, I would say, like Schopenhauer and music.
He's teaching philosophy.
Huh?
He's teaching philosophy.
Oh, you teach philosophy, yeah? Okay.
German Center.
There's another philosopher who has written a lot about music is Adorno. Theodore Adorno. Yeah.
He read Schopenhauer in original.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but then, I wonder when Schopenhauer's, in the third book, he said, Welt als Wille und Vorstellung, the world as Wille's, representation, second book actually. But the music was obviously the Western classical, especially Mozart and Johann Sebastian Bach and all. And so the music as a perfect objectification of will. There are other examples too in Schopenhauer. And but the will he conceives as the will in the nature. It's quite wild, it's quite blind, more aggressive. And I wonder if this music, like our Indian classical music or the Persian, whatever, the Asian, how would that be? Like Schopenhauer, would Schopenhauer take this music as an example of, I'm sure definitely, but there in the Western context, another example is Wagner, for example. Why Wagner was so influenced by Schopenhauer, because, and he thought that he could even intensify that to get closer to Schopenhauer, because Tristan and Isolde or Lohengrin or all these early works of Wagner, it's quite intense and I won't say aggressive. And once Wagner went and met Schopenhauer and thought that Schopenhauer would appreciate Wagner's music, he dismissed Wagner. He didn't like Wagner. He said, no, I will stay with my Mozart. So he was actually, and I agree with you, so this as examples, like for example, all this Hindustani and Carnatic music, and how that could be an expression of will. I would say we have to reread Schopenhauer, because the Schopenhauer, the influence of Schopenhauer on Nietzsche. So maybe you could do your next lecture on Nietzsche, because it is more music in Nietzsche, the birth of tragedy, out of the spirit of music, which was Wagner's music. And so there the whole philosophical issue is for Schopenhauer, it is still a Kantian. So for Kant, aesthetic perception is a disinterest, and mainly referring to the plastic art. But Schopenhauer places music where that is not easy, that disinterested. Yeah? Actually Schopenhauer moving ahead of Kant in that sense. And one more point, one differentiation he makes is between bass and the melody. And so that's very important by Schopenhauer, and I think Nietzsche seems to have taken that and to make it the Apollonian and Dionysian divide. And the entire Nietzsche's philosophy of music is influenced by this. So I think it's the way you work on music with Schopenhauer. You have to work on Schopenhauer with this kind of
Yes. Would you like to say anything, or just a comment? Anybody else?
Salil, you have something to add?
So thank you very much, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, and thank you all for being there. Thanks a lot. You can go with Schopenhauer, you can go with music, you can mix them up, or do whatever. Now you're free to do that.
But please put the track on your post. Yes, sir, that's what we like to do.
Yeah.